Welcome to the Combot Collective.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first Battlebots 2021 playoff prediction episode here at the Combot Collective, bringing you everything you want to know about the 2021 Battlebots season. And this is it. We've covered all the regular season. We've ran through it. We did our breakdown episode, which you can see should be out by the time this one comes up. And we have our opinions. We have our thoughts about it. But now we enter the playoff picture. We have 16 really exciting matchups lined up for us. In fact, 18 really exciting matchups lined up for us if you include the play-in fights. And overall, this looks like a fantastic playoff set of matches here. The 2020 playoffs ended up not disappointing in the slightest, and I think we're going to get just as good of a lineup here with these matches. So let's not waste too much time. It's going to be myself, of course, your host as always, Sterling Brown here, former writer at Third Law Sports, current moderator of the Battlebots subreddit, and current showrunner at King of Draft. And joined, as always, by my co-hosts, Mr. Redman and Pory, and by our new co-host and U.S. correspondent, Freeze, who, of course, was at the Battlebots top 32 and the end of the regular season in Las Vegas this year. So he's got some good insight. This is going to be a really good episode. I can't wait for this one. Let's not waste too much time and jump into here. But, of course, as always, if you like this episode, please subscribe to us. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And please join the Discord channel. Let's jump into this episode now and talk about some fights. And here, as we open up our bracket discussions, we talk about the very first seed, the top robot in our TCC 10, and its two potential challengers here in Scorpius and Malice fighting for the 32nd seed here. Just running down all the robots here, of course, like we said, endgame TCC 10, number 1 seed, defending Battlebots champion, coming from New Zealand and OES Robotics, looking for the third major championship here with the vertical spinner. Scorpius, of course, and Malice, both 1 and 2 with fantastic, bombastic seasons that they put up. Scorpius, of course, put on one of the best, fantastic fights of the entire season against Yeti for one of their losses, ended up picking up a pretty solid win against Orby. And also lost the main event match against Whiplash, so a very respectable season for them. Meanwhile, on the other end, we have Malice, who opened up the season a bit rough, lost against Tantrum, lost against a really close friend of the team with them, and Jackpot. But both fights where they tried to put up a perfect fight and just couldn't get the right opportunity, but made it up big time with their victory against Blacksmith and what ended up being a solid judge decision win. So they're here. They're going to be fighting each other, and personally, I think this is going to be an easy win for Scorpius, moving them on against Endgame. And I think it's going to be close, Endgame versus Scorpius. I know I brought it up a little bit in the prior episode we were doing about breakdown, about the bracket, I should say. I think Scorpius has a big chance to upset Endgame. I think this might be a split decision, but I do think this is going to be Endgame's victory here. What are your guys' thoughts?
Scorpios is going to take out Malice. I don't even know why Scorpios is 32 seed. I think it's after Scorpios' performance. I think Scorpios done really well in the preliminary matches. So putting it as 32 seed over Defender, who's 31, that's proper cheeky, don't you think? Yes.
Yeah, I think I've got to stick to my guns on the opinions I've had about 2 and 1s being over 1 and 2s. But,
Yeah.
you know, I've mentioned a million times that I think this is just another byproduct of poor scheduling, that a 1 and 2 kind of has to be slotted in these playoff matches. But this really is, I talk about, I think I mentioned at some point, you know, Lockjaw 0 and 3. I think that's like the gold standard for 0 and 3 seasons. I think Scorpios is the
Seriously.
gold standard for 1 and 2 seasons. This is probably the best 1 and 2 we've ever seen, not just in its capability, but in the fights. I mean, 2 split decisions and its losses against top, really, especially Whiplash, top tiers. And I think it takes this fight against Malice. I think it's just too durable.
It's just a
got too
perfect
much
counter for
control.
Malice, yeah.
Yeah. But up against Endgame, I think it does have the potential to upset. I unfortunately don't think it will. I think their season's going to end there. But a decision is my opinion, though. I think it will go to a decision because that thing is just so durable. It's been so durable all season. I think we will get a really good fight out of it. I hope it rivals Scorpios and Yeti, because being there live, that was my absolute favorite fight, and I'm really glad it was also good for T.
It was so good. It was to me like that fight just was
That's
the best.
the pinnacle
it
of
just
robot
made
combat.
it just made the best. It was two robots. It's evenly like tied with one another in terms of power and strength, just wailing at each other for 3 minutes with no real victor in sight. It was truly phenomenal.
It's funny too, because when I saw it live, I thought it was a pretty clear Yeti decision, but rewatching it back on the TV, that fight really was split decision close. So you know, it was.
You can see it because of like how. Like, you know, even though Yeti was this big bruise hitter who was tossing Scorpios around, Scorpios was getting those precise hits in on places where they just needed to.
And especially at the end, getting that control.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was pretty fantastic.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure Scorpios is gonna win the fight. I mean, they're the horizontal killer, but I'm gonna go on a limb and say this is gonna be a top tier fight. Like, it's gonna be a really good one, I think.
Absolute slugfest. Has to be. Both these robots don't die.
Yeah, it's like, I feel like it's gonna be kind of like similar to like what we saw with Malice versus Blacksmith. Only the hammer saw actually is gonna have more of an edge in this fight, like something like that.
Yeah, Malice's flat top's going to be pretty tasty for a team like Scorpius. Scorpius has such good relationships with a lot of these teams, like Malice, like Gigabyte, like Jackpot. That, you know, seeing them face teams like this is always fascinating. So this is going to be a really good matchup. But it looks like we're all in a pretty general consensus here to end game. Likely moving on to the top 16 yet again here. The defending champion moving on. But Scorpius, we could see an upset here. I'm still hoping for it a little bit. I'll be pretty stoked if it does end up happening. But now let's move on to who Scorpius' potential opponent. I'm sorry. Maybe Scorpius. Let's move on to who Endgame's potential opponent will be. Two robots that have beat Endgame actually in the past, as we move on to our next round of 32 fight here. And moving on down here, it's the seeds right next to each other. 16th seed versus 17th seed. It's the 2018 finalist Minotaur taking on the robot that was seeded third in the 2020 bracket, Bloodsport. This is going to be an absolute battle here between two robot styles. Bloodsport, very familiar to taking on tanky robots in round one. We saw them take on Gruff last year. Both these robots also have a chance to face Endgame yet again, like we were just talking about. Both these robots have beaten Endgame in the past, Bloodsport beating them in 2020's regular season round 2, and Minotaur beating them in round 2 of the Desperado tournament in 2019. So a lot of history here for all these robots. Only one robot, though, can move on to the round of 16. Personally, I got to go with Minotaur here. I think this is going to be a good counter to Bloodsport. We've seen Minotaur take it to some horizontal spinners before in the past. I think this is going to be no exception. I think Bloodsport's going to have some trouble. We're likely going to see some Wedgelets get ripped off. Might be a judge's decision. Might be a knockout. We've seen Bloodsport really sharpen his blade through this season after the Whiplash fight. But it's going to be very interesting. What are y'all's thoughts on this one?
This should be a fun fight, I think. And this is probably one of the harder ones in the bracket, at least for me. Because, I mean, Bloodsport's looking good, but, like, I feel like they were looking a little better last year, maybe? I don't know if that's a hot take.
I mean, you beat the champion, yeah.
Yeah, but, like, you know, other than that, I feel like Minotaur also kind of looks like they're slacking a little bit this year, but not as badly. So I'm going to probably go Minotaur on this. But it could go either way, really.
Minotaur also, at least is coming off an absent year. This thing, was it this one again? Look, it's fallen off 4 times this recording. It's just going to stay off the wall for the rest of this episode. I've given up on it. But yeah, I mean, Minotaur has come off an off season at the very least, you know, and they have gone through some things at the start of the year, especially with the driver Daniel Freitas, personal things. But I think they're really starting to come under their own here. You know, we saw them beat Dragon Slayer. We saw them beat who was their third opponent?
Deep Six.
Oh yeah, Deep Six, right? That was recent. You know, that was a very formidable bot, even though it was a bit of a lucky win there for them. You know, I gotta go. I think they're gonna have to take this one. Bloodsport, you know, we see them have some trouble against some tanky robots so far this season. They really struggled against Whiplash. I mean, Sub-Zero was a robot that they had to at least work for, you know, to get the victory there. it's been a bit of an interesting. It's been an interesting year for Bloodsport for sure. But yeah, definitely gotta go.
I think Minotaur takes it. Bloodsport actually, in my opinion, I'm surprised even before you even mentioned it was a hot take, because in my opinion, Bloodsport looks pretty noticeably weaker than last year. Not just because they're not 3-0 or whatever, but they had that big win over Endgame, and also in their wins this year. I mean, the Claw Viper fight was kind of a toss-up, and that's, we give a lot of kudos to Claw Viper, but that's kind of Bloodsport playing down in competition. And then, I mean, let's be real here. That Sub-Zero fight was not impressive. They, if Sub-Zero's got better timing on those flips, and I don't want to throw around too many ifs, but just considering how late those flips were, I mean, if Sub-Zero gets a couple more flips in, and especially they had them in positions where the blade was not spinning up immediately, they could have got some flips in. If they take advantage of that, I still think Bloodsport wins, but we're looking at a different fight. And I think Bloodsport has left itself open to too many opportunities for opponents, and I think Minotaur will absolutely take advantage of that. It's really hard to gauge where Minotaur is, just because of the nature of their 2 wins. But I think the one thing I could say is promising is that even in that loss in Sawblaze, where the weapon lost bite almost immediately and it went up in flames, they still survived. So I think
that's true,
I think they can do well against a lot of damage.
Yeah, real test of durability there. I know you said you have them go into the finals, you think. I definitely think they're going to be a semi-final robot. Myself, this is just a robot. You can always expect Riobots to come out here, even with the new captain who has had heavyweight experience in the past, Junior Souza. The team is always just going to be really good, especially with Daniel Freitas, one of the most aggressive drivers in the world right now at the helm. We're all going Minotaur here. Bloodsport, like y'all were saying, you can just see they've had to work for all these wins. It's been a rough year for them, but hey, they're still 2-1. They made the playoffs. They're sitting at the 17th seed, and they're still in a good spot. They're still definitely a bracket threat. This is a battle between 2 robots who have shown their durability, and that's really a good trend I have seen in a lot of these bracket fights. Is just how strong robots are getting now. So many robots now going the full 3 minutes. You look at so many of these round 1 fights, and it's like, oh, this is going to be so good. So many potential for some long-term matches, some real bangers here. But and some potential upsets. I think we got a big upset in this next match as we move on to Copperhead versus Lucky. And now moving on to that fight, talking about Copperhead versus Lucky here. Starting off with Copperhead first, they were a top 4 seed last year, number 8 seed this year, so they're still in the top 10. But Copperhead with a 2-0 season, they didn't need the third fight apparently. Some really bombastic victories against robots like Fusion, like Lockjaw, and what was a split decision. Rob and Kim Cowan, they've proven to be some really proper captains in Zach Goff's absence, leading Copperhead to a top 8 seed here. Taking on yet again a very interesting robot, they faced Mammoth last year in what was a big upset, facing a robot that beat Mammoth now, Lucky. And what I think is going to be another big upset here, of course, Lucky, now with Matt Olson behind the wheel, this RC car driver that has proven to be such a big factor for Lucky's newfound success. This, of course, Lucky's first time making the playoffs ever since becoming Lucky. And it has looked absolutely fantastic here. Even though it's only the 25th seed, they seriously held their own against Tantrum, put up some big flips, dominated Orby, made it look easy, and then did some surgical flipping on Mammoth, who we just talked about. Looked excellent there. And I think Matt Olson's going to do something big here. I think Copperhead is going to be the perfect shaped robot for Lucky to pop around, do some big time flips to him, maybe even bust the vertical spinning drum on Copperhead. We saw it happen with Mammoth. I can see it happening with Lucky. And we know Lucky has the armor configurations as well. I mean, look at what they used against Orby and look at what they've been using in these other fights. They have come to be a very versatile robot and it's a surprisingly reliable robot as well. Coming into this Copperhead fight, but what are your all's thoughts on this?
I'm not sure what direction to go with this fight. Really, first off, I'm so happy that Lucky's in the bracket. Like that's great.
Yeah,
this
I
is
agree.
We've always dreamed of.
Super awesome.
Copperhead's a scary robot. Like I can't help but feel like Copperhead's got the edge in this, unless like Lucky gets like an Uda or manages to break the drum, I guess, which is possible because I mean Copperhead is kind of a glass cannon, sorta. But I guess we'll see. I'm going Copperhead on this one though.
I would lean toward Copperhead. I think the logic behind Lucky actually pulling off the upset is pretty good, considering how Copperhead got tossed around the Mammoth last year. But I don't know. I'm just thinking that it would kind of go the same way as the Tantrum fight, where I think I think they will win and get a couple of flips in, but I don't think it'll be enough to knock Copperhead out or stop the drum. And I think after some amount of time, they'll get in there and start moving the robot up. So, yeah, I'm going Copperhead on this, but I don't think it's a cut and dry fight.
Yeah, not open shut. It really does have to be, for Lucky to win this, I do have to admit, it has to be a perfect driving matchup for Matt Olson. He has to pretty much not let Copperhead, or at least very minimally, only like 1 or 2 big hits, depending on how Lucky can take him here. There has to be no offense from Copperhead here. They have to take out that weapon early. They have to hope for a lot of things to go right here for Copperhead to find some success. For Lucky to find some success here for a top 16 berth. But yeah, Copperhead the likely favorite here. Even I can admit that. And it's been interesting because, before we talk about this Glitch fight, I do have a Glitch wing that I think if Copperhead wins this fight, I think Glitch would probably not do so well. Same with Witch Doctor. I think Witch Doctor will probably beat Lucky. If Copperhead wins this fight, I think that would be completely changed, and we would see Copperhead move on to the top 8 rather than Lucky, Glitch, or Witch Doctor. But we'll just have to see how the bracket plays out. We'll predict those fights as they come as we now move on to Glitch versus Witch Doctor here. And now let's move on to this last match in this quadrant here. We have Glitch versus Witch Doctor. Of course, now we have Glitch coming at 3-0. The real surprise 3-0 with the number 9 seed here. I think this is a bit of a high seeding for Glitch, but 3-0 is 3-0. They knocked out Hydra and Kraken with some fairly impressive victories there. That Ghost Raptor victory was a bit of a carry thanks to Ghost Raptor. What a strange match that was. And then on the other hand, we have 2-1 Witch Doctor, who has some very, very easy wins against spots like Rusty and Duck. Taking on beloved fan favorites, but not much else when you talk about robots like that. And then you have a contested loss, but a loss nonetheless against former champion Endgame. Current champion Endgame, sorry. It's a very odd contrast of schedule for Witch Doctor there. A really hard match sandwiched between 2 absolute freebies. It's going to have a proper challenge here in Glitch. I think this is going to be yet another upset victory here. I think for a lot of people, upset victory, even though Glitch is the higher seed here. I'm buying into the Glitch hype here. Have Glitch winning this one on a knockout and going through here. What are y'all's thoughts on Glitch versus Witch Doctor?
Glitch is too high of a seed there. Goodness me, it's gonna be a wash anyway. I feel like Glitch has gotten. I don't know how anyone else feels here, but I feel like Glitch has gotten here off the skin of its teeth almost. They got lucky in the Ghost Raptor fight where Ghost Raptor decided to be merciful, beached themselves against the side wall, and they got lucky in the Hydra fight because Hydra decided to die to the floor, and then it managed to get itself together against Kraken, who we already knew wasn't going to get in because Kraken was pretty much outmaneuvered. Sadly, couldn't really get underneath it, and I just don't see why it's seed number 9, because I don't really see it being against a robot that is proper competent. I think it's going to lose against Witch Doctor, and that's going to be it for Glitch in this season. Just a lucky run, which apparently I think frustrated a few of the drivers in the background, and yeah, that's about it really. Glitch is cool and all, but I don't see it not only being seeded 9, especially above robots that have arguably performed a lot better than it, like even Scorpios, or hell, I'd say even who else would I say performed even better? How many others would?
I'm gonna look at the bracket for you. I can kind of just.
Tantrum. How is Tantrum seeded lower?
A lot of those 2-fight robots have weird seeds. Yeah. Hypershock as well.
I'm just gonna beat a dead horse with this, but these 2-0 robots really screwed it up. Because normally, what I would say, it's always been my philosophy that I think the undefeated robots should be the top seeds. So if, let's say those 2-0s didn't exist, they were all 2-1 for some reason. If it was Endgame, Ribot, Blip, Glitch, I think those should be the top 4 seeds. Even though Glitch, did not perform very well. I think they got better near the end, but a very weak 3-0. But the problem is you got 8 2-0s. So then it's like those robots that got the extra fight. It's like, how are you seeding these dinos exactly?
Yeah.
That's what I got to ask.
They're all
And
over the place.
they have a section in the rules for like how we seed the robots, but I've got to go through and actually compare and see if it's in line with what they have written down, because I don't know, man. The which I'm okay with it being a high seed. I'm okay with it being top 10, but it's like then when you put it next to Jackpot, Tantrum, Shatter, Hypershock. I don't know, man. I think all 4 of those robots should be above it. And now to I guess contradict myself, I don't know. I think Glitch wins. I have a feeling in my stomach that Glitch beats Witch Doctor.
I just think Glitch has the ground game. That's just where
I
sit
think it
with
does too.
I think we saw I think we saw Witch Doctor really struggle with Endgame's ground game. They weren't even raising the crazy forks during that fight, you know?
Yeah, and also just the amount of bite that Witch Doctor can get on that front wedge of Glitch. I'm not sure. I think Witch Doctor's best bet to win this fight would be to exploit Glitch's maneuverability, but I don't know if it gets that far.
Yeah, they gotta get behind it. They gotta take advantage of the fact they are a more athletic bot, a more aggressive bot. But yeah, Witch Doctor, both these robots gotta put up a perfect fight if they want to win. I just think it's more likely to be Glitch with the design matchup.
I thought I was gonna be the only one saying that I think Glitch beats Witch Doctor, because I think both of you guys are gonna say Witch Doctor wins.
No, I gotta go Glitch, because this is one I really thought about. Actually, I had to think about this one more than Copperhead versus Lucky as an upset. But yeah, I think Glitch is gonna kind of do what Jackpot did. You know, it's the rookie with the high seed and undefeated record here. I think Glitch wins this one. I also have him going to top 8, but that's against Lucky. So who knows? But yeah, Glitch here for me. As we now move on to the next quarter of this bracket here, starting off with Solid Blaze versus Hijinks. And as we move on here now to this quarter of the bracket, we start off with the number 4 seed and the highest ranked 2-1 robot, Solid Blaze, taking on Hijinks, seed at number 29. Another low seed for Hijinks here in the bottom 4 seeds here, and it's taking on another crazy powerful MIT robot here in Solid Blaze. Of course, you know, Solid Blaze, like we said, 2-1, battle for the top seed here against Endgame, and had what was pretty much just not a fight, going out of the arena immediately. Now, of course, they also had big wins against Minotaur and Mad Catter, which brought them to the spot they're at now. While on the other end, Hijinks had a very up and down season, lost their first fight in episode 2 against Mammoth, where due to an oversight, they just lost one of their wheels. And then bounced back in a very exciting but a very controversial fight against Kraken. Then went to the judge's decision, and then unfortunately capped it off by knocking out Sub-Zero, feeding me a tuna sandwich in the process. I'm not looking forward to that. That all sucks. So hopefully we'll see Solid Blaze take care of Hijinks here. What are y'all thoughts? I have to go Solid Blaze here. This has to be, in my opinion, probably the most open shot round 32
Solid
match.
Blaze.
Yeah, it's Solid Blaze.
This is
I think all 4 of us really can look at Hijinks being here and thinking, huh? Why? Why?
Yeah. Well, I
It's
think
2-1.
based off the 2-1 record, it should be there. But I mean, it didn't win that Kraken fight. Just throwing that out there.
Like it's one record in one of the fights where it arguably was immobile for 10 seconds. Even
Yeah,
I think the Kraken advisor saying,
Also, I'm just saying, like, the Mammoth loss was embarrassing, but you know those things happen. It's first fight, whatever, and then they go and the Kraken fight. Realistically, that was a loss. I still don't understand that decision. And then to go beat up on an 0-2 Sub-Zero, I don't know. I mean, they beat 2 0-3 robots too, which is not a particularly good luck. I think they should be in the tournament, but I think a bottom 4 seed is correct for them. And I think Solid Blaze absolutely dominates this fight. I think we might finally see Hijinks like break.
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that Solid Blaze is doing this. Let's be real. If Hijinks wins this, I'll join QWERTY on the Subway video.
Who likes Subway?
Seconded, man.
That doesn't count.
Out of all the fights here, this might be the one I'm most confident in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think other than like Whiplash Ice Wave, I think that would be the only one that would be comparable to me, and it's kind of a similar, matchup. But Sawblaze, as far as a 2-1 goes, I mean, I think they did a good job of seeding it a top 4 seed, even with the loss, because the loss told us really nothing about the robot other than that Jameson occasionally make driving mistakes.
Yeah.
But it was so dominant in its other 2 wins.
Yeah.
Well, and hey, if they treated it like the other 2-0s, it would just be 2-0 going in, and it would be a top 4 seed. So,
that's true.
I think basically that fight was basically just a TV fight. It did nothing for either bot. They barely took damage, and they're in the seeds they would have been if they had just stopped fighting. So yeah, Sawblaze all the way.
Heck yeah. There you go. Big clean sweep for Sawblaze for us here, of course. Probably the most open shot fight the entire first round of the playoffs. It's just bad luck for Hijinks to keep getting these robots, but it's such a wonky design. I'm surprised they've made 2 straight playoffs with 2-1 records. As we now move on to that Hypershock versus P1 fight, the Battle of the Speedy Boys here in round 32. With Hypershock versus P1, a bit of a grudge match here. I think a lot of fans were actually picking Hypershock to be the robot that P1 should have replaced during the whole Justice for P1 drama of 2020. Now they're getting to face each other here. Both 2 robots, both designed kind of inspired by the race car theme, especially with P1. P1 more of a vintage car, Hypershock more of your modern car. But talking about the bots themselves, of course, Hypershock 2-0 season, 13th seed, unlucky for some. Hypershock, 2-0 here. Wins against Lockjaw, wins against Slammo. Yeah, that's the one. There we go.
That's okay. I forgot it was there too.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, 2 knockout wins there against robots that were in the top 32 last year. Robots that ended up not getting any wins this year, unfortunately, but that doesn't stop Hypershock much here. Still looking pretty solid with the 13th seed. P1, on the other hand, 2-1 yet again, but finally getting the redemption season that they deserved here. You can't debate these victories. That huge victory early on in the season against Valkyrie, that judge's decision really solidified Slammo. I'm sorry, Slammo's in my mind. P1 as a playoff level robot, and then of course they went on, had a pretty solid fight against Jaeger where they managed to win, and then had a very contentious fight against Ribot. Probably made the best use of the pulverizers all season during that fight. A really good season here for Brandon Zielinski and the rest of the P1 team. Same with Will Bills and Hypershock. Now they're meeting up. Only one of these robots can go into the top 16. What do you guys have as your pick? Because I'm going for the big upset here. I got to go P1. Think it's going to be a close one.
Yeah.
I got to go P1.
I'm going P1.
P1 all the way.
Yeah, this is my most hyped fight of Battlebots. I mean, I've been wanting Hypershock versus P1 for ever since I already saw these 2 since P1 in action, just showing its speed, its maneuverability, what it can do again, and seeing 2 just race cars just speeding around the Battlebots, I think would be fantastic. It's gonna be great. I wouldn't be surprised to start hearing F1 noises, in the background. It's just a shame that we can't have Core Viper involved. We have a video match between the fastest robots in the Battlebots, but I can sell for 2. I can sell for these 2.
Right, especially with such big stakes on the line. P1's such a sleek robot, and with the wedge configurations we've seen them run this year, especially with the one they used against Ribot, which proved me wrong, ended up being a super effective thing. I think that P1's just a more carefully driven bot than Hypershock. Hypershock's still a bit zippy sometimes, a bit too aggressive for their own good, especially with Will Bales behind the wheel. I think it's going to be a control victory here. I think it's going to go to the judges, but I definitely think it's going to be a victory for P1.
Yeah, my issue with this is, look, I'm number 1 P1 fan here. I got one of their parts sitting on my desk. I've been a super big fan of this bot since they modified their design to this the super low race car lifter. My issue is that even though they've proven themselves to be better against Verts this season in that Ribot fight, I still think that's a really big weakness. We saw how quickly Ribot was able to, just with one hit, tear open the wedge and immobilize one of the wheels. And I'm just afraid that the amount of damage it takes will be too great for it to overcome. So I'll be rooting for P1. I'll have my shirt on. I'll be screaming for them like I was when I was in person. The picks are regardless of what I know. I'm going Hypershock.
Yeah, P1 getting that redemption. They're making that comeback. They're doing this for me.
P1's gonna toss them out the arena.
We are getting justice this week.
If a robot did go out of the arena, this would be the fight where it would happen. I wouldn't be surprised to see one of them playing themselves out.
Yeah, I can see maybe Hypershock doing what they did against Hydra a year prior, maybe a year before last, I should say, where they ramped themselves out of the arena.
I think it'll be a fun fight, two fast bots, and I think this is a pretty closely matched fight. I think I would love to see P1 win, man, but heart's not going the same place my head is, so I'm going Hypershock.
There we go. Yeah, looks like we're pretty split here. A bunch of P1, a bunch of Hypershock, but this is probably going to be the fight that steal the round for me. This is going to be a sleeper fight of the night, potentially, for both these robots. It's going to be super exciting. As we're getting close to wrapping up the first half of this bracket here, we move on to Uppercut versus Huge next. We talk about some really stacked matchups in this first set of matches here. Of course, we have potentially Endgame versus Scorpius. We obviously have Minotaur versus Bloodsport. Maybe even Glitch versus Witch Doctor. Glitch has been a very up-and-coming rookie here. But, the most stacked, in my opinion, fight we have in this first half of the first round here has to be Uppercut versus Huge. Two robots who have really made themselves, proper names of the Discovery era of Battlebots. Uppercut made top 16 in its debut season. Now, arguably the best vertical spinner in the world, taking on a robot who has helped pioneer, alongside Gabriel, the meta of the big wheel robot, especially in the United States, especially with putting a spinner on it. With Huge, who sits at the 28th seed with a winning record here. Both these robots had a winning record. Uppercut, of course, 2-0 with their victories against Gigabyte and Free Shipping by Knockout. And then, of course, we have Huge, who, after the step back against Riptide, had their victories against Retrograde and victory against Switchback as well, here to cap off Huge's season. 2-1 there. What are y'all's thoughts on this matchup? I have to go Uppercut. I think that weapon is going to hit Huge in the perfect way just for it to do with the plow, I should say. Uppercut should be able to take these huge strikes, I think, and get into the body of Huge and land enough damage, land enough impacts to the core of Huge that we can see it get knocked out in the same way we've seen Aftershock knock out Gabriel's midsection in the past. I think we can see that here. Maybe not a bot splitting per se, but I think Uppercut is going to have Huge's number in this matchup. What are y'all's thoughts on this one?
I guess I could see eventually Uppercut winning, but I also think that Huge may have a good chance of taking it as well. I mean, Uppercut, I know, is definitely a durable machine, but so is Huge, and Huge is known to be fairly, it's designed to sort of, take those hits on wheels, and maybe with enough tossing about from Uppercut that Huge may break, but I think there's always going to be a spinner on spinner contact, and I think it will really just come down to who's going to break first when the two strike, really. I want to say Huge, but if Uppercut does win, then that's fair as well.
Yeah, these are two fairly reliable spinners here. I just personally think it's with the angle of impact. I think Uppercut's going to have the better reach for it to hit. More important stuff on Huge, and Huge will with Uppercut. Alex Satori has been really, really solid with driving the big gyro of Uppercut, just being able to take advantage of it and kind of hone control of it. Does have a bit of a bad kickback that Huge doesn't have as much, but I think that's going to be those part of the smaller intangibles that are going to give Uppercut this victory. At least from my opinion.
I go toward Uppercut in this. I go toward Uppercut in this. I think Huge has some nice power this year, super improved, and I think they have a formula to beat Uppercut. Uppercut has the potential to break down like it did against Ribot, kind of from breaking itself from its own hits. But I don't know. Uppercut looks good this year. They're dishing out damage. I just don't, because we haven't seen Huge against, both of their wins have come against rookies. So we haven't really seen it against a robot that can output the amount of damage that a top tier robot can, and I think Uppercut gets it done.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that, honestly. Like, Huge could do it, but I'm not counting on it. Uppercut's just terrifying, and I feel like they're a good height to reach the body. That's gonna be a bad time for them if that happens.
Yeah, if Huge is able to pull this off, I think I think they've been looking for a growth moment for a couple years now, because since that almost 4-0 season, they've kind of struggled out of the gate to perform as well as I guess they know they could. But if they're able to beat Uppercut here, I would also like their round of 16 matchup, getting either Shatter or Riptide. I would love that rematch with Riptide. I think they could take that And I think if they're able to overcome Uppercut here, they could do some damage.
Yeah, I think they definitely have a good shot against either Shatter or Riptide. You're right in that regard. Shatter might have some good reach against Huge, but we'll get to that point when we get there. Yeah, I think that Huge just has to keep that weapon going, stay on top of Uppercut, just keep landing strikes at the top of Uppercut if they want to win. But I do have to go with the 5th seed here, Uppercut, to go on to the top 16, for me at least, as we now move on to our final left side of the bracket fight here with Shatter and Riptide. And of course, as we finish it off, it's a battle of West Coast and East Coast here. One of our favorite matchups, High Styles there with that. 12 seed versus 21 seed as well. Shatter, of course, 2-0. Big judges' decision victories and dominant judges' decision victories at that against Sub-Zero and Blacksmith. Showed off the Mary Special in that ladder fight against Blacksmith, and the Mary Special, in my opinion. I said it back then when we were doing these... we were talking about that fight when Shatter was in the TCC 10, thanks to that fight, that I do believe that this new overkill style of weapon is going to be the future of axe bots. More range, it seems like it's lighter in general, it's easier to swing around, and it's going to be harder to break. You can't break the axe tip off of a weapon like this. This thing you can swing around, you have more area to attack. It's not just 1 square centimeter where you can just try to pinpoint and strike it down, but on the other end, we have Riptide, of course, who comes in at 2-1, their only loss, in a very spectacular defeat against Defender. Victories against Huge, like we just mentioned, and against Duck, which they just did at Week 9. A bit of a controversial robot, but still a very good robot. It's a shame we haven't seen the lifting forks used in Riptide, and hopefully we'll see them using this Shatter fight. I think there's room for them to use them here, but I doubt it just because they haven't used them yet. Very whiplash situation there, but... yeah, Riptide versus Shatter here. I have Shatter winning on a split decision personally. I think the Mary Special is going to be a really good counter to the Egg Beater weapon of Riptide. We may even be able to see them take out a chain like we did on Blacksmith or a belt potentially. What are y'all's thoughts though here on this matchup?
I have to agree with you, Quirk. I think Shatter is going to shatter the dream Riptide finally and put an end to this versus. While Riptide, I think Riptide might have it easy going up. I think it had a decent shot against Huge, and I think, but though, as Freezer said, I think Huge has been on a bit of a down low as of recently, so one could argue wasn't as a good of a victory as one would say. But I think Riptide may have had an easier sail through the brackets, but I think Shatter's going to be a durable machine and a difficult machine to try and outmaneuver, really, since Shatter's got the Omni Drive. It's pretty nimble, and that Mary Special, I think, will break something on it when it gets swings down. So I can see Shatter winning, really.
Yeah, I think Shatter's got this in the bag probably, unless they drive it really sloppy. I think as long as they're on their A game with the driving, and that Mary Special keeps hitting, I think they should be good. Snipe a belt or two maybe, and just keep attacking. I mean, they've been known for being very aggressive, so I think that Shatter should be okay in this. But I mean, Riptide could surprise us,
This one is probably the hardest one for me to call. Sorry for interrupting you, but
no worries.
Yeah, this one's probably the hardest for me because Riptide is the one that I'm really on the fence about. Because if the Riptide that Duck shows up, I think they can win it. But the Huge fight told us next to nothing about the robot, and the Defender fight, I have some concerns about the weapon's reliability, and since Shatter's a tank, so this is really tough. But I'm gonna have to toward experience on this barely. I think this is gonna be a very close fight, and it's a very close fight to call. But just based off of the pedigree of both of the teams, I'm leaning towards Shatter.
Yeah, I mean, it's just with the weapon and how they've ran this year. We see what they did to Sub-Zero. They hit the battery on that bot with that overhead axe hammer. And like we've talked about plenty with the Mary Special, it's a crazy thing. It's clearly a successful concept. We thought it was a bold concept coming into this season, but they proved it's a successful design, and it's a winning design. And with the ablative armor of Shatter, the agility that the bot has, and Adam Wrigley driving it, there's a lot of good intangibles here that make me think that this is going to be Shatter's fight. But like y'all said, we'll just have to see as we start wrapping it up here in this TCC predictions episode of the left half of the round 32. And that's going to do it for us here at the Combot Collective with the first half of the bracket, the left half of the bracket, top 32 predictions. We have ran through 9 fights here, 9 pretty interesting fights. Really interested to see what's going to happen in the number 1, number 32 matchup selection there. Still banking on the idea that Scorpius might be able to make up the big upset and get into the top 16. But just looking beyond that fight, we have a really, I feel like a fairly obvious fight in Sawblades versus Hijinks. Probably the most obvious matchup in all of the first round here. And but you look further on down the card here, we have some potential upsets. Like I said, I think Lucky might be able to beat Copperhead. I think Glitch might be able to beat Witch Doctor. Those would be some big matchups, though I will say, I didn't know this when we were posting this originally, when we were recording this, but Witch Doctor has come out and said they will be using Wedgelets likely for this Glitch match. So keep that in mind. That might be a little bit worrying, but yeah, this is going to be a really exciting set of matches here. Uppercut huge as well. That's a battle of the all-stars. That's going to be really awesome. Shatter versus Riptide, 2 new weapon concepts there. That's going to be really good. It's going to be a really good set of matches here, but let's not waste too much time. If you like what we're doing here at the Combot Collective, as always, please like, please subscribe, please comment, please ring the bell icon, and please follow us on Instagram, please follow us on Facebook, and please join the Discord channel. I am Sterling Brown. I am your host. You can find me on Instagram at SterlingTCXTG, and you can find me in future projects this year. And, of course, you can find our co-host, Freeze. He doesn't have any social media thing yet. I don't believe he posts on YouTube, so maybe just check him out. He's a pretty cool dude on here. But for the other two, as always, Mr. Redman, you can find on his website, joshuagunnet.com, or on his YouTube page of the same name. And for Porynog, you can find him on his Instagram at Porynog, or you can find him on his YouTube page in the description below, www.dippyegg.xyz. That's going to do it for us here at the Combot Collective. It is our first prediction playoff episode of hopefully quite a few here. We got to do one, of course, for the right side of the bracket. Top 16 and top 8. A lot to talk about, but it's going to be an absolutely fantastic Battlebot season, as always. Playoff season, I should say. Thank you again, and let's get out of here.
This was the Combot Collective. Find us on Instagram and Discord.